As we continue with our coverage on the 2022 Matric results, we look at the ways of coping and dealing with results for both pupils and parents. And more on this discussion, we're joined via Zoom by Seago Maapola, who is an educational psychologist. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so very much for giving us your time here on SABC News.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. All right, so the results are obviously starting to sink in for many pupils and learners, of course their parents too. Some may be disappointed, of course some happy. How should each individual sort of process this moment, and it is an important moment, and how to cope and deal if it wasn't what you expected it to be?
Yeah, I think that Matric is such a big milestone, but it's important to know that it's not the only milestone that a learner is going to experience in their lives. I think it's quite crucial to know that we're all going to experience disappointment differently. The way that parents would experience disappointment would be different from the way that their children would experience that, as well as the extended family. I think if parents or families have not notified you of anything, do not ask. I think it's important for our community and the people that love us and care for us to know that as and when families affected feel safe to do so, or comfortable to do so, and have processed the disappointment, then they will be able to reach out to inform the rest of the wider family how the results have gone. And I think as a way of coping as well, it's really important that for now, the students stay off social media, because of course you will hear and see that everybody is celebrating, and again that will impact the way in which you cope and you process the news that you've experienced.
I like what you said there in the beginning about, understanding and realizing that, there are many milestones in life, and this is just, sort of one of very many. How do you get to that point, though, of rationalizing that self and making sense of that? When you're in high school, something that might be small to other people is a huge deal to you. So where do you begin in terms of, processing that and understanding that, life is long, well, we hope, life is long, and then that there are, other things to look forward to?
I agree that, sometimes it is difficult to try and process and understand how things go. However, I do think that the student is the one that is most affected. I think it is the family's responsibility to help them process that there is more than just this moment. I think that, of course, teenagers and young people, we know that they see things in a very limited view. They experience life in a very limited way. So for them, this is such a big thing. I'll never be able to get over this. Yeah. However, I think it's important that as a family, we're able to reassure them, and the way in which we relate to them after this doesn't change the way that we love them, doesn't change the way in which we care for them and we support them. And I think it's important that the messaging around that is very clear, and then it will take some time. It is a blow to one's self-esteem. It is not something that they might be able to get over in 1 day or 2 days. And I think in this process of understanding what has happened, it's also important to come up with a plan of action that now what? Yeah. And, today and over the next few days would be great to go to the school to find out what are my options if I wanted to upgrade, or if I wanted to redo some of the subjects that I had, who do I contact, and also find accredited institutions to either do your upgrade, or if you can't do it through the school. So I think it is important to have a plan of action in place, and really I'm hoping that the families will use this time to show care and support to the children, because it is a big blow and it is something that they'll be able to move on with going forward. Yeah,
you talk about the fact that it is the family's responsibility to help the learners process, but it's also, they could also be needing to process certain things, especially for parents who might feel a little bit disappointed. So how do they, do they pretend not to be disappointed? Do they express disappointment, but also, as you say, figure out now what's the next move, what's the next step? Or is it not a good idea at all to even express any level of disappointment? And I say this because, we also hear, of learners even, contemplating taking their own lives. So is it even a good idea to express disappointment if you are, as a parent or guardian, disappointed?
I think it's important to manage our own feelings, because we know that in this space where we have to be there for our children, we have to be there for our children, right?
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Yeah.
If we need to call our relatives or our own parents or our friends to try and comfort us, because in this moment, they're the ones that are directly impacted by this big blow. And I think that unless you're at a point where you're able to genuinely be there for your child, then rather give yourself some time and process, and then go to your child and say, I would rather say, I understand that this has happened. I'm also taking some time to process this, but I'm here. I love you. We'll figure it out together.
Yeah.
But do not pretend, because they will be able to pick it up. And also it is a blow that the whole family is experiencing together. So I don't want to invalidate anyone's feelings. However, I do think that they're the ones that are directly impacted. And at this very critical time, it's important that they're the people that we're able to focus so much attention on, because like you're saying, we realize that there are learners that want to take their own lives. Some even succeed at that, or some just don't want to continue or try again because of how parents have reacted, or because of the shame that they feel that they're the first person, for example, in the family that hasn't been able to pass and things like that. So I think it really is important to manage our own feelings and know that when we are there for our children, then we're there for our children. We have our own support system. Our children aren't our support system. Yeah. It's important to have those clear boundaries, because as you mentioned, they're seeing it from their perspective, and this is the worst thing that could ever happen to them.
Yeah. And let's talk about all the changes. I mean, whether you've done well or you haven't done well, after matric, there are going to be changes. How do learners best sort of prepare for, I suppose one could say, starting a new chapter in one's life, whether it is that they're going into university, whatever tertiary institutions that they might be going to, or maybe even considering going into the workforce. There's going to be changes in dynamics, obviously, meeting new people, and especially some of those coming from remote areas. It might even be a culture shock, maybe coming into places like Joburg. How do you best prepare for that?
So at this day and age, I think there are many things that are wrong with social media, but there are fantastic things about social media. Do as much research as possible about the space that you go into. And also when you do get to that space, for example, if you're going to university, a lot of the universities have advisors, administrators, students who are able, second year and third year students who are able to guide and orientate first years around the area and things like that. So there is adequate support. I think it's important to know as well that with big change also comes a lot of excitement as well as anxiety, because you are stepping into the unknown, not really knowing who or what you're going to become, and just to allow yourself the process to grow and to develop into the person that you're going to become. I often like to look at it as when we were really, really little and we didn't know anything at all, then we would, we learned how to walk, we learned how to speak. All of those things were processes. They didn't just happen overnight. And again, then we went to grade 1, again, a very big shift if you went to a different school. Yeah. When you went to grade 8, so there have been milestones over your life. This is not the first milestone. It is a very important one, and I think draw strength from the community around you and have a really good support structure. And if there isn't a support structure within your immediate family isn't always the people that are related to us. It is the families and the friends that you also get to build along the way, networks and connections that you build, and of course reaching out to a psychologist or to a therapist if you feel that you're extremely anxious about adjusting to a new phase of your life. There is adequate support out there, and I pray and wish that students don't have to go through big changes by themselves. There is support that is out there, and we're all just waiting to welcome you into the big world. It is very fun, and I think it's important that we just embrace it with both hands.
All right, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for your input on the show. Seago Maapola, who is an educational psychologist. Many thanks to you, ma'am.